What's good,
Hello
guys?
and welcome to this week's edition of the NXT 2.0 BodySlam.net post show with the Jameus and Throwback. Uh, Unfortunately, couldn't be on air last week due to some travel stuff, so Throwback covered us. Sensational job. How you doing today, man?
After all the freaking insanity that happened to me last week, I'm more appreciative of life than everything. Um, if nobody knows that I work for a franchise with an for an oil change company, what happened was they believe that I possibly could have had a seizure in the shop, and my other doctor primary believes that it could have been more. So now they're doing, as of Wednesday, I was in the hospital and they're doing a battery of tests for the next month. They're going to do an echocardiogram, ultrasound on my heart and around my throat. And then they're doing a stress test and possibly what is an EEG, which if you don't know what it is, I know this is a wrestling show, but we do go through medical terms sometimes. It's where they put electrodes all over your head and trying to induce a seizure, and it has to be sleep deprived. So if it's scheduled for an NXT show, I will probably be up for 24 hours afterwards trying to figure out what to do with my life for that day.
If you need me to cover, man, I'll cover it any week you need me to. So
We'll have fun no matter what. We'll keep doing what we do and keep killing it.
tonight's show opened with a tag team match between Casey Catanzaro, Katana Chance, still getting used to that one, and Kaden Carter versus Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. The winning team would become the NXT Women's Tag Team Champion #1 contenders. What were your thoughts on this match?
You knew where this was gonna go. I mean, come on. You're not gonna put if they haven't put the titles on Katana. I hate calling her that. And yeah, Catanzaro. Basically, I'm gonna call her, and Carter. They're not gonna do it at all. They're just gonna be keeping them from like in a natty position where they're the mainstays of the division, and they're just gonna try to build the next big thing up. Roxy's on a hot streak. You might as well just keep that. And then Cara Jade was literally just was going great, and then it just halted with a lot of stuff after the momentum she had with Natty and everything. I think that you knew going into how this match was going to play out, because now where this is their go home show for the Great American Bash, you kind of figured out that they were going to just mail it in a little bit. And in this match, it pretty much showed that you already could predict who was going to win beforehand.
That seems to be a common theme in a lot of these NXT programs. Most WWE programs in general, unfortunately. But I thought the match was okay. There was nothing they could really do to get me invested in a match like this. Again, going back to your earlier point about knowing exactly where it was going to go. Cora Jade and Roxy, had already been involved in programs with Toxic Attraction as is, so it was a next logical step. It was what it was always going to be. I don't have much to say about that.
Yeah, the match really was just a fast-paced match, a lot of innovative moves and stuff. It was okay. But the problem is that, and hopefully this changes with the rumor of Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, coming back, that they'll figure ways to push some stories going forward where it makes sense. And that's the way the Black and Gold was. It made stories that made sense. It pushed the narrative on it. You saw little signs of that tonight, but you didn't see where it came to #1 contenders or something to push the narrative for the story. I mean, there were some points in this match where you're like, okay, well, you kind of figure out how it was going to go, and it's the same story with these two as a team. So what's next for them? Either you dissolve them, even though they're best friends, and have them move on, or you figure something out, because honestly, this isn't working.
With Triple H now back in the blocking, or but now, my bad, y'all. With Triple H now back in the picture for NXT, assuming he's taking the role he was in before, now that Stephanie McMahon is the new interim CEO, I don't know how much longer Toxic Attraction has its legs underneath them, because that doesn't seem to be Triple H's MO as a promoter. And he never really did much with Mandy Rose in NXT originally. They're more of a main roster kind of act. I wouldn't be surprised if they they lose JC Jane and Gigi Dolan lose next week alongside Mandy dropping the belt eventually, and then they put the belt on Roxy going forward. Roxy seems to be more of a Triple H kind of fit, but who knows? Maybe the Triple H spot is too temporary for him to make a major dent in the feel of the show anyway.
I kind of think that if he is back in some capacity, his influence is going to be huge on this because of the ratings have probably been not as what they hope on a Tuesday night, considering the fact that you have Raw, NXT, AEW, and then Rampage, and obviously the whole string. Plus, you have Impact on Thursdays. It's a full week of wrestling, so this fills a day in that whole lineup. But it doesn't seem like the numbers, though, for any ratings, as they say they don't care about them, matter, and when it should, because it's a good barometer of where your audience is going, and this is where they should see it. Now, bringing Hunter back will help that, but I think Toxic Attraction, literally, once that all of them lose the belts, they will literally be on SmackDown, but within about a month.
That is a very Vince McMahon-esque kind of act. Something traditionally guys like Bruce Pritchard will gravitate toward on television. And whether that's right or wrong isn't for me to say, but it fits the feel of the show better on the main roster than in NXT, which is more a traditional wrestling program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see major changes coming forth after SummerSlam at the end of the month, next month. It wouldn't be shocker that they, like Grimes pointed out today, and we'll talk more about it. There was a comment in there that kind of had me shaking my head and scratching my head, and it made me think they're going to pull that trigger soon. It's very interesting that they're giving Katana, Catanzaro and Carter the due that they want, because they've been there in that division since it developed, and it should be like a huge payoff, and it's like they're not giving him the shot, and then they're just letting these other talent that are still learning to go up over them and stuff. I know the process and everything, but like the saying goes, let it make sense. And right now they're going for the two hot hands rather than going with rewarding the people that have been there the whole time.
Next on the itinerary is Nikita Lyons made her return to NXT tonight, challenging Mandy Rose to a match at the end of the night, and don't really have much to say there. It's just important to go ahead and introduce that Nikita Lyons is back, and presumably going right into the main title picture.
They got nobody else for Mandy. Who are you gonna push? You already gave them Cara Jade. You got freaking Roxy in the background waiting, and who else? Are you gonna give them Lash Legend right now? Are you gonna give them somebody who just literally just started? I mean, are you gonna give Fallon Henley, who right now is busy with the new and I'll point this out, the new UK NXT tag champions Jensen and Brooks? Jensen and Briggs, but you literally don't have many people to line up, and in the ones they do, it just seems they're gun shy to pull the trigger on. So
Hopefully they pull the
Who are
trigger
you
on
gonna give?
Lashley with this title opportunity she has at her disposal. But I'm not necessarily holding my breath on that. The next match on the card, Giovanni Vinci. That's going to take a long time for me to get used to. Versus Ikiman Jiro. A fine match. Was what it was going to be. Fabian Eichner's last ride sit out always looks great. Um, the character's not really doing much for me, but it gives them something other than, oh, it's one of Walter's cronies. Pardon, Gunther's
It,
cronies.
it makes perfect sense because it gets him more TV time. He's not stuck on SmackDown behind Walter and everybody else in the noise.
The
It
way
would
Marcel
get
Bartel currently is.
yeah, and it wouldn't it would give him more opportunities to like the way he is. I wouldn't be shocked if he, by the end of the year, gets a shot at whoever is the NXT champion. Now, if Grimes loses, I think they're going to have to pull the title off of Hayes and give Hayes the shot because if they're going to pull that trigger on friggin' Breaker, they got to do it soon. As much as it's too early, they're going like a Goldberg kind of route with him, which is kind of sad. But that's my opinion and not the opinion of bodyslam.net. So I have to say that.
I may be an editor here, but my opinions aren't a reflection of Body Slam either.
Yeah, but it's fun to see like the what ifs we can do with these and the fantasy bookings on it. But it has to be said that in the end of it, they have to figure out where to do with this character, where to put him, because they're just giving him people who are learning how to do this. And it right now, it's not helping anybody. It's just squash match after squash match. I wouldn't be surprised if they put Sikoa right there, solo Sikoa right in front of him to give him a real difficult challenge and see how that goes and how he handles that.
I agree. I don't really know how much you can do with a Giovanni Vinci character. To me, it just seems one dimensional. Every story would be the same. There's not much for the audience to gravitate toward in the persona, but at least it's something. It's something new. It gives Fabian Eichner, who's a sensational worker and very athletic, more of an opportunity to show what he can do in a solo sense. A lot of people don't know what he can do, and they're about to be very surprised.
I wouldn't be shocked if that because of the release of one of the guys in the family, the quote unquote family, which is Tony D'Angelo and the other person in the crew, that they put put Eichner's character in the mix with them and make him like a Sicilian mob boss that's over D'Angelo that he didn't realize because of the Sicilian in mobs are usually the Sicilian part of the family, which is a little higher compared to the American and stuff if you watch gangster movies. But I wouldn't be shocked if they try to spin that around and D'Angelo gets his karma and realizes he is not the Don. He is the Don of NXT, but he is not the mob boss, the head boss, so to speak.
Well, speaking of Tony D'Angelo, my favorite part of tonight's program, Two Dimes has officially been written off television after being thrown in a river, and now he's sleeping with the fishes. They killed off Troy Donovan and kayfabe.
Yeah. It's literally just like every other like I said, it's every mob boss movie that you ever had. They
I'm
end up
glad
killing
they
somebody off.
recognized the release and actually gave a reason he's suddenly on television, which they don't normally do for NXT, especially stories that are left loose ended. I think in a weird way, it helps the Tony D'Angelo character progress logically, especially if you're trying to sell him to the audience as a
I think we got paused.
You know. Oof.
You're back.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, but you're right. It's one of those things that does make sense. It pushes the narrative on to him to go to the next thing he needs to do. That feud that he has with Santos Escobar is unresolved now, considering everything, and they're obviously not going to have him at the Great American Bash. So what are you going to do with D'Angelo until then? You're going to have to build him up, because I don't think they plan to do a specialty show for SummerSlam yet. There's no announcement for that next month. So what do you do? I mean, you got to figure something out. You tried moving him against Hayes. That didn't work out. That was a short thing. And then what are you going to do? Who's the one thing he can go after? And other than Hayes, Breaker's going to need another challenge. So, I mean, D'Angelo, if Grimes doesn't do it against Breaker, D'Angelo is probably the next one, because you have Grayson Waller setting up for Hayes, and I really don't want to watch that, to be honest with you.
I don't want to watch it either. Next up on the card, Indy Hartwell, Keanna James. Keanna James picked up a somewhat surprising win here on a roll-up after Indy Hartwell missed a diving elbow drop. A little bit of a surprising win, but I like that they're trying to establish somebody else in the women's division, seemingly. What were your thoughts?
The question I have about this is that there was a picture leaked not recently, I think, on Sam Shaw's page on Instagram, I think, of him in Indy, and the hashtag was index with the thumbs up. Do you think it's a possibility, even though WWE gets a wind of this stuff, that it was at a show that he was at, that maybe they weren't too thrilled with that, and they could have just gave this win to somebody else to give them confidence, and just make sure Indy gets the message, hey, you're in a little trouble for that.
I think that's dumb, but the precedent has been set. Do you remember the Highlanders a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Isn't that why they got cut like 10 years
Yep.
ago, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
whatever that was?
Yeah, they did something stupid on social media.
No, they showed up at another show, not working the show, and
Yeah.
people took a picture of them, and they were like, "Why were you attending the show?"
Hence why stupid things on social media.
Yes, sir. I don't think that's it. I don't think Indy's character can recover right now. There's really not much more you can do with her without a hard reset, especially after you put all of that stock into the one story and then randomly and inexplicably cut the person
main
she's
person
relying
out of
on
it.
in the story.
Yeah, the main person that's part of the whole story aspect of it. It's just, there's nothing really for her, which is really sad. It's like you're expecting something great to happen for her after all the stuff. Like, it almost seems like it's a curse. Like, every person that Indy has worked with has either, and I feel so horrible saying this, but it has been cut, released, the story's ended, and it just stopped out of nowhere. A good example is you don't see Duke Hudson on TV in the last week or so.
No.
Like, and he was on a story with her for like 2 seconds. It's like every individual person that either was going to get cut or left or decide to not re-sign, it's just a circumstance where everything lined up that way, and it's just so horrible, because if she is talented, I'll get it, and that's all there. It's just she needs to be repackaged and retooled to something where it's beneficial. I think, honestly, and I said this to a buddy of mine, that she is in the Bayley spot where Bayley was stuck in the hugger position, where they didn't know what to do with her. They know they had something special with her in that position, but they didn't know what to do with her afterwards. So, and then, you got the knock knock, hello, stuff going on, and her turning heel and stuff. I think indie needs to be reinvented, not repackaged, but reinvented and revigorated, because it seems like she's doing what she needs to get by, but she needs to be re-energized, so to speak.
I agree. I don't quite know how you do that, but it's not my job to do that. So, next on the card is Diamond Mine. Roddy Strong and the Creed brothers go head to head with Joe Gacy and the Dyad.
I still asked you last time. I'm like, how the hell do you wrestle with freaking a hoodie? Just covering your entire face. A druid wrestling. Who would have thought that had happened?
And I think I made this point last time. That has to be very difficult in telling a story, because how are you going to tell a story in a wrestling ring where mannerisms are so crucial and integral to the story in the context of the match, and you can't make facial expressions? Nobody knows what you look like. It's even more restricting than a mask, even.
It's ridiculously interesting. Ridiculous in the fact that they have to dress like that. Interesting because now when they pop that reveal for who they really are, people are going to be more invested. I think they'll be more invested because curiosity is a big thing. And if you're curious to find out who's underneath those hoods, and it's somebody that's like huge that's making a return or something, or somebody who nobody could expect, that is a pop right there, and that's a big deal.
Do we trust the performance center crowd, which is more or less the same crowd every week?
No, but if they decide to start traveling a little bit, if they do it right periodically, like some shows they plan to do in Florida, but let's say they do a takeover back in Brooklyn and these guys are still doing the same thing with Gacy, just imagine the pop on that when they reveal it after the match who it really is. It's very intriguing, but very, very, very weird to see two guys go through it. But I guess Gacy is the guy that they believe that will help them along, even if it's performance center talent. I think the Creed brothers are amazing. I think the match they had with the Viking Experience was amazing. I don't
They're
see.
very different.
Yeah. I'll keep going. I think that with the Creeds, they make things a lot more interesting and fun. They remind me of a little bit of a mix of the Viking Raiders. Welcome back. With the Viking Raiders and a little bit of the old school Demolition. Kind of like they just want to beat the crap out of everybody, kind of like the APA mix of everything. If you have to compare a main roster,
They
kind of
remind
this
me
generation.
more of a tag team version of 2003 Lesnar.
Pretty much. I mean, I look at it as Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin back in the day with Kurt Angle, where they literally just had that athleticism of that in that background like they do. But mixed up with like the APA, where it looks like they just want to brawl when they can. They're chomping at the bits.
Speaking of tag teams, I'd completely forgotten to go over this, so let's circle back. Pretty Deadly confronts the new NXT UK Tag Team Champions, Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen, or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Jetson and Briggs. That I was literally shocked when that happened. I was excited for them. I think that they are a really good tag team and on the rise, but with the whole clog area that is the NXT tag team division right now, which seemingly is setting up to be really good. For especially since WWE doesn't like strong tag teams for the most part. They keep rerunning the same ones over again. It's kind of like if you love tag team wrestling, NXT is actually becoming one of the spots where you should pay attention to. because a lot of the UK talent they're bringing over to strengthen it to make it stronger. But I think with Briggs and Jensen having the UK title and you have the Creeds on the other one, it could make an interesting scenario where the NXT family decides to maybe unify them at some point, because now with travel, and you heard Briggs and Jensen, they're willing to fight in the US and in the UK and go back and forth and be fighting champions. It makes sense if you wanted to unify those titles and you'd have one title for both brands and go back and forth and fight. I mean, it would be perfect. It would make sense.
I like that. One of my biggest issues, I'm a big NXT UK guy. One of my biggest issues is that it feels like the show is on its own island. And I like that they're starting to merge that a little bit and bring up more, make it mean something on main NXT.
I mean, they did just announce that another NXT UK talent is going to be coming over, the
But they're
Ace.
also changing his name and doing everything they can to establish something else
Americanize
than
them.
what they established.
Yeah, they're Americanizing him, basically.
The next match on the card was Sangha versus Quinn. Not a really good match. The crowd was lost. I don't have much to say about it. If you don't have much to say about it, I want to move on.
Sangha, to me, is a star in the making. He's multi-dimensional when it comes to culture, which is great because he could be a good representative of his culture and others. He kind of reminds me of Kane and Taker with that choke slam, but I know people give me the same reaction, but I'm talking about like the performance of it, setting it up, the facial feature aspect of it, where he goes like this. When Taker used to go around the throat with the thumb, he used to just lightly goes like this, like he's trying to. I think there's a lot of things you can do with him. Zion Quinn, I think is going to be great, but I think he needs to be set up in a tag team. And I thought they might do that with Wes, but I don't see them actually pulling that trigger on him in a tag team. I wish, because I think if you put somebody who is a lot better, let's say Apollo, it could season both of them. And I think that's Zion Quinn's next feud is going to be Apollo Crews.
Yeah, that's fine. Who, by the way, has completely lost his accent. The main event of the evening was Mandy Rose versus Nikita Lyons, and a match where Nikita Lyons won via disqualification. Toxic Attraction attacked Nikita Lyons. Roxy, Cora Jade rushed to the ring and made the save, and that was that. Heels retreat as usual.
It made one of those matches for me where they were focusing on Nikita's knee more so, but it to push the narrative on this, I think they're going to try to spin it where they're going to create like a small gang warfare faction like they were going to with Nikita, Cara, and Roxy, just because that's what they do with Toxic Attraction. It has to be pulled the trigger on them. Somebody has to win the title belts off them for a bit, but we'll see what happens. It's very, very intriguing to see that with the Great American Bash, the women's championship is not on the card. So that tells you where they think that it stands as at this point.
That's interesting too. And then in the final segment of this tonight's edition of NXT 2.0, Cameron Grimes confronted Braun Breaker ahead of their NXT Championship match next week. Once again, the promo focused around Braun Breaker's father, that he couldn't make it in the NFL, and that Braun Breaker used his name to get to NXT, whereas Cameron Grimes had to claw his way up. More interestingly, at the end of this segment, they gave Braun Breaker an Achilles heel, where you could tell the buckle was kind of gimmicked the first time he hit it, and it looked good. But the second time he hits the T-stone into the turnbuckle, it explodes, and he's favoring his arm quite a bit. And Grimes, paraphrasing, said something along the lines of, I can't beat you out of 100%, but you're no longer at 100%. What were your thoughts on this segment?
It was really interesting. Now, one of the things Grimes said, and I wanted to point this out, is that to quote him, if I can do it purposely or correctly, is that he said that he only has this shot, whereas Breaker can turn around, lose the title, and he can shoot right up to the main roster on Raw or SmackDown, or hell, he could even be on SummerSlam if they wanted him on there. Whereas Grimes, for him, there's nothing after this. This is the only thing he could think of and only shot he has, which makes sense considering the fact that he was a really good North American champion. And the natural progression is that if with every North American title, because that is NXT workhorse title, like the IC title. Now, a lot of people yell at me about comparing the two, but it's NXT and it's their version of that. And if you're going to give Grimes a title shot at Breaker, making it a lot interesting, they were playing off each other. The respect factor was there, but then they tried playing it off and just acted like it wasn't, important. The comment about how Braun failed in the NFL and then he called his father, is not an original thing. We've heard that with Charlotte. We've heard that with the Usos and all that stuff. But it was really good and really interesting. It did push the narrative for more so for Grimes than Breaker, because it made you want Grimes to win that match. The turnbuckle, though, even though it was probably rigged, the sound of it on the first time being so explosive on that impact, yeah, it looked literally like it was a receipt. Now, for me, that just seems like from observation, like something happened where Grimes is like, you have a receipt or something like that. We don't know what happened. If there is something, and we can't dig into it, it's just, speculation at this point. But I really think that impact on that first one was a mistake. And I think that was the one thing that speed of that impact on that buckle. And then, the second time Grimes threw him in there when it came off, that was the one thing that worked. But I think that first one was probably what is a really real injury, because it sounded like basically like a freight train hitting at a high speed. And I hope it's not. I hope he's okay. But you never know. I mean, that noise, that impact on that buckle, and it literally sounded like it was just hanging by a thread afterwards. I don't think if it was rigged to explode, it should have exploded way before that segment, because that buckle was being used commonly all throughout the night.
You can rig it through the commercial.
But it makes sense. But still, I still think that huge of an impact, it might just end up being something different. Now, I might be jumping to conclusions too.
I think you jump into conclusions.
Yeah, I overthink sometimes.
But I've noticed, but don't worry, me too, man, me too.
But I kind of analyzed it too, to the point where it's like that literally, if that buckle was rigged, and that impact is a lot harder, unless the sound boom for the camera was a lot lower to make that impact.
It doesn't always work as planned. I mean, I'm using an old example, a 20-year-old example, but there was rigged glass and a guy bounced off of it and got a concussion one time.
Yeah.
It doesn't always just go as soon as they hit it.
Yeah, like tails, they're supposed to explode. They don't explode. So, I mean,
You're overthinking this.
Yeah.
But
don't take on me. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I feel that. The segment I thought was really good. This is the first time in a long time I've had any interest in anything Braun Breaker's done. And I think that's on Cameron Grimes, whose character work is perfect. I don't think this segment was as good as the segment 2 weeks ago, which is what sold me on this program. But it's time to pull the trigger on Cameron Grimes. There's not much left for Braun Breaker to do. It felt like he was getting ready for the main roster call-up couple months ago, then they put the belt back on him. There's nobody left for him to work. There's no story left to tell. And it's time to move him up. And I think enough people are behind Cameron Grimes to make this work.
I think the one person he has left is Hayes. I think Hayes is the last obstacle in his way. I think they should put the North American title on Sikoa and then move forward, but they're not going to. And because they, in their heads, I guess, some way, shape, or form are hesitant of that. So, but this moved the narrative. It moved the needle. It made me more invested in watching the Great American Bash and watching in that match. The rest of the card has me questioning everything, but that's the one match I want to watch the most.
Yes, sir. Remember, next week, normal time, NXT Great American Bash. I'm going to run down the card before we wrap this up. Wendy Chu versus Tiffany Stratton. The Creed Brothers versus Diamond Mine for the NXT Tag Team Championships. Trick Williams versus Wes Lee. Carmelo Hayes defends against Grayson Waller. Toxic Attraction defend against Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez. And then the main event, Cameron Grimes goes for the NXT Championship against Braun Breaker.
You broke up, man. There you go. You're back.
How much of that caught?
Not much. I heard bop.
Okay, so my internet's being really funky. It's been doing that all show.
It's
Not
okay.
running down the card again. People can look it up. Where can we find you on social, Throwback?
Hey, we got Wicked Crazy Pinfalls on Thursday. We have the people from Love Wrestling NXT hosts Ed Fries, who's local boy from Littleton, Massachusetts, and Asterisk. They're going to be on talking about the Great American Bash and Hell in this Money in the Bank. Check out the Twitch at Throwback978. Check me out. Wicked Crazy Pinfalls on YouTube is Throwback27 at YouTube.com. The thing about it is that everybody, give some praise and love. A good friend of mine, Drew's going through a little bit. So, show some love and tell him you're thinking about him. Drew Nicholas, he's a really good cat. Really good dude. So I just announced for the Wicked Crazy Pinfalls title belt that we are pushing the date because of that, of it, for their title match, which is Dennis Farrell versus the champion, Drew Nicholas. It will be at SummerSlam. And then we're doing a Money in the Bank prediction match for a Wicked Crazy Pinfalls Money in the Bank briefcase. Yes, we are going that route. We're going to pick 5 people and it'll go from there. But check it out. Just check it out. Wicked Crazy Pinfalls every Thursday night, youtube.com/throwback27 and on the Twitch 978. And the Twitter's the same thing. So, if you look up Facebook, you want to add me, it's Wicked Pinfalls. I know it's crazy, but still. But other than that, just check us here every Tuesday night after NXT, and we'll rock it and give you guys the best of what we can do.
And for me, a week and a half ago, my new podcast aired. It's called the Excellently Executed Podcast. Corey Brennan, our lead news writer, he does terrific work. And I break down different drop kicks, how they fit into the sequence of a match. We examine how different wrestlers deliver, take the move, stuff like that. It's going to be a different move every episode. It's really good. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I'm very proud of it. Be sure to check that out. You can find me on Twitter at the Jameis. I tweet about a lot of stuff, so please don't expect it to just be pro wrestling. I'm an editor here for Body Slam. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all the socials: Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. No, I don't even know what we use our Instagram for. I say that every show. Maybe I should just say in SCAS what our Instagram is used for. Either way, be sure to follow us, like, subscribe. We have a lot of terrific work, a lot of terrific people. Code of Honor podcast with Kyle Sparks airs we record on Thursday. It airs every Monday at 3 produced by yours truly. And then we have the Tea and Tights guys, Andy and Dan, do a great job. The Jabronis do a great job. Of course, Throwback and his boys. Bad Blood, Julian, Shane do a great job with every other weekly post show. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of wonderful content. Until next time.